Jeanine Pirro's future appears to be hanging in the balance over the D.C. U.S. Attorney's decision to drop charges against a former Olympian who was accused of vandalism, among other people, at the reflecting pool. Now, sources say it is highly likely that she'll be fired. Another administration official described the president as blindsided by Pirro's reversal, which instead blamed a botched renovation by the contractor.
Donald Trump's own hand-picked officials are now finding themselves in his firing line. And according to CNN's latest discussion, it all comes down to one simple question. What happens when reality gets in the way of Donald Trump's narrative? The panel debates reports that U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro could be fired after dropping criminal charges in a high-profile vandalism case due to a lack of evidence. They also discuss whether the Department of Justice is being pressured to pursue politically motivated prosecutions, concerns over taxpayer money being spent on the White House reflecting pool renovation, and whether loyalty to Donald Trump now matters more than following the facts. Now, if you're new here, I'm Bradley Hostin, and this is The Bradley Hostin Show. If you enjoy honest political commentary, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. As usual, let's watch the clip, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts afterwards.
Jeanine Pirro's future appears to be hanging in the balance over the D.C. U.S. Attorney's decision to drop charges against a former Olympian who was accused of vandalism, among other people, at the reflecting pool. Now, sources say it is highly likely that she'll be fired. Another administration official described the president as blindsided by Pirro's reversal, which instead blamed a botched renovation by the contractor and criticized the Interior Department. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum pushed back hard on that, and we're told that Burgum and Pirro met with Trump at the White House this evening. When pressed by reporters about her future at his signing earlier today, the president didn't hold back.
Jeanine Pirro made a mistake. There was vandalism. Frankly, I think she choked because the judge was really vicious. Instead of going after the people that did it, the judge went after her and went after her department. And I guess she choked. I don't know what the hell happened. I was disappointed with Jeanine Pirro, really disappointed with Jeanine Pirro. She folded like an umbrella.
Once again, we are through the looking glass and being asked to pretend that what we know is fake is real. And Jeanine perhaps had a moment of clarity of like, we don't have a case against this man, so we cannot charge him. And now she's in trouble for living in reality in Trump world. If she had lived the lie, then she would be fine. But because she said, no, this is reality, this should not. I mean, it's the same thing with the election, the big lie. It's the same thing with January 6th. Over and over, we are asked to believe that non-reality is reality. He looks us right in the eyes. This is what dictators do, that he looks us right in the eyes and says, X is reality, and we know it's not.
Anyone want to dispute that?
Well, not really. I mean, the difference, though, between the dictatorship that you're describing and this is courts of law, where evidence rules. And if you can't produce sufficient evidence, you get uprated by a judge and you lose the case. It wasn't just this guy. It was 3 others whose cases were dropped today. And the statement from the District of Columbia Attorney's Office said it's a botched installation. Just giving up. The entire narrative that we were told for weeks was not true. And it's not like this is as egregious as those prosecutions were. This isn't James Comey. This isn't Letitia James. To the average voter, those as egregious as those prosecutions were, those people were in the game. These were civilians. They were just passersby. This could happen to anybody. It's the sort of thing that could have the possibility to really get more attention than it deserves because a lot of people are going to say, listen, that could happen to me.
Yeah, and I think also it's worth noting that this is not the first time that Jeanine Pirro has been pressured by Trump to do something, and then the thing basically falls apart when there's no evidence. Remember when she was trying to criminally prosecute the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, over a renovation of the Fed building? Remember when the sandwich thrower was slapped with a felony and that case fell apart in a grand jury? That's just one of many other cases that she's brought since in the limited time she's been in this job to try to pursue Trump's ends. And to Teray's point, I mean, this is like a fictional thing that Trump has basically made up. And he is convinced that it's real, and he wants everybody around him to as well. And it looks like Doug Burgum is indulging him.
Well, I, for one, was really hopeful we would never have to talk about the reflecting pool ever again. Here we are.
Sorry, he won't let you. He won't let you, Lydia. Sorry.
Jeanine Pirro is doing her job. You know, she's going where the evidence leads, and we'll see what happens. Trump tends to be more loyal to his people he's known a long time, so I'm curious to see how this plays out. But Jeanine Pirro is doing her job
over this. What does that mean?
I think it speaks to a truth in the Trump administration and the people that surround him, which is he loves to hire incompetent loyalists, but he also loves to have a scapegoat, and particularly the women around him. You know, this is sort of a theme that I've been tracking, whether it was Noam or Gabbard or, you know, just...
She left on her own accord.
Yes, yeah, that's right, Bondi. But I think there's this trend with Trump where he creates his own problems, but he also creates his own teams. And when people fail to fall in line or fail to execute on almost an impossible task like defending this, he's unafraid to throw them aside.
I think it's I agree with all that. I guess I would say, to Noah's point, the real problem here is that Jeanine Pirro had to appeal to a court of law. She had to present facts. And of course, the court recognized that this was a lie. And so, you know, she had this impossible task, which was to acknowledge reality or lie to a court, which is just technically illegal, even for the Justice Department. And so I think the truth of this whole situation is, you know, of course we're asked to live in unreality, but the thing that's more dangerous here is that the president is willing to fire his own people in order to have willful prosecutions that are just totally made up against innocent, basically bystander civilians. And that is a weaponized DOJ, which is exactly what he claims to have been worried about.
This is President Trump talking about this contract that is really at the heart of this. It's a no-bid contract that went out to some contractor that he had apparently had a previous relationship with. And this is what he said back in April versus what he said today.
Now, I'm not saying I was 100% thrilled with the contractor, but the contractor was rushing. We wanted to get it open for July 4th, and we got it done. And by the way, I didn't know the contractor. Everyone said the contractor. I didn't know the contractor. But when it was completed, it was perfect. I said, you know, Doug, I have a guy who's unbelievable at doing swimming pools. I'm going to send my contractor over and take a look. He looked at it. He called me up. He said, so we can do something on it. We have a color. It's called American Flag Blue. I said, that's the color I like. He talked me into it very easily.
I mean, the lies, and it's just a lot of lies.
It is.
From 1 month to another.
But he's supposed to be a builder. Whatever we think of him politically, he should be able to build things, right? He should be able to work with contractors to get what he wants, right? But clearly, again, he's unable to do that. He's actually falling back on the thing that America first became knowing him all about, firing people, right? That's what we're getting back to here.
But also, I mean, this contract has been rife with problems from the beginning. As he pointed out, he rushed this job. He gave this guy a no-bid contract for $6.9 million, which is several times over more than he said the whole project would cost when he started it off. They used this rarely used exemption that is supposed to be used to prevent serious injury, financial or other, to the government in order to get this contract through. So I guess it shouldn't be a surprise to any of us that the president cutting corners on this project and elsewhere, by the way. Let's not forget there's a whole hole where the East Wing used to be. All kinds of things at the White House have been torn up, and God knows what those arrangements have been. But this is a very vivid example of what it looks like when there's no oversight, which there is supposed to be for things like this.
I mean, to your point, if there was a little less tolerance on the part of Republican lawmakers for this sort of thing, you'd probably see less of it because there'd be a check and a mechanism to enforce some sort of propriety on the president. They don't really do, Republicans don't really do him a lot of favors by indulging in these fantasies here. But the misuse of taxpayer dollars, as bad as that is, doesn't rise to the level of the abuse that we've just seen. Charging of private citizens
Right.
with crimes that cannot be proven in court, much less probably an indictment sought before a grand jury. These indictments were simply handed down. So I think we're talking about apples and oranges here, and those oranges are really, really bad. The apples are just
I would agree with
kinda
that.
bad.
I would agree with that because I think that the damage that is being done to regular individuals is the story here, and also Trump's willingness to weaponize the federal government to pursue his imaginary aims is what this story is about. That's scary.
And we did watch in real time as this renovation happened. I mean, people were documenting it on their runs on TikTok. And it came as no surprise to us when the paint started peeling up and the algae blooming. But, I want to uplift something that I was seeing as a narrative online, which was people were saying, this is my paint chip. Maybe I'll sell it for $250. And then commenters were joking, I already paid $14 million for those peeling paint chips.
Also, can I just say, it's so weird how much time he spends on this stuff. Like, I will say Americans are worried about gas prices and other things. And the president spends so much time on this reflecting pool and then defending the reflecting pool and then attacking his U.S.
And then
attorney.
having meetings with people at the White House about the reflecting pool.
It's like it's like that and the Iran war are kind of even to him.
Well, we don't have time to play it, but Maggie Haberman at the New York Times, who knows Trump very well, she says she believes it's about 70% of his mind share right now that is devoted to these projects, and it's not a joke. She's being very serious. And when you look
as he ages,
when you look at his
less
public
mind share to go
comments. Look, you can just look at his public comments. How much does he talk about this stuff?
It's really
almost every single day.
Many of them have been quite successful in cleaning up
It
the
doesn't.
fountains.
It literally
and-
doesn't matter.
Why does he
Are
care
It's
so
about the priorities.
gaudy and tasteless. The gold in the Oval Office, outside of the Oval. Again, it's not a left-right thing. It's just disgusting.
It's just tasteless.
Yes.
So there were two things that immediately stood out to me during that discussion. The first is Jeanine Pirro herself. Now, let's be very clear. Jeanine Pirro has been one of Donald Trump's most loyal supporters for years. Nobody can deny that. But what happens when even one of your biggest supporters reaches a point where the evidence simply isn't there? According to this discussion, the charges against not just one individual but several people were dropped because prosecutors concluded they didn't have a case. If that's true, then what exactly was Jeanine Pirro supposed to do? Was she supposed to continue prosecuting people she couldn't prove were guilty simply because Donald Trump wanted convictions? Because if that's the expectation, then we're no longer talking about justice. We're talking about politics replacing justice. And that's what concerns me the most. The Department of Justice shouldn't exist to satisfy any president's political agenda. It should exist to follow the evidence wherever it leads. Sometimes that means bringing charges, and sometimes that means dropping them. That's literally how the justice system is supposed to work. The second thing that really stood out to me was a discussion about the White House reflecting pool. Honestly, I found that part astonishing. At a time when Americans are worried about inflation, healthcare, housing costs, and what's happening overseas, we're hearing that the president is spending an enormous amount of time talking about a reflecting pool renovation. Then the conversation shifts to who got the contract, whether corners were cut, whether taxpayer money was wasted, and suddenly everyone else is being blamed when things go wrong. That seems to be a recurring pattern. When something succeeds, Donald Trump wants the credit. When something fails, somebody else gets the blame. Whether that's Jeanine Pirro, a contractor, Joe Biden, or anyone else, accountability always seems to flow in one direction. And that's why I think this story is actually much bigger than a reflecting pool or one criminal case. It's about leadership. A strong leader hires good people and trusts them to do their jobs, even when the outcome isn't politically convenient. But if every official knows they'll be attacked or fired the moment reality conflicts with what the president wants to hear, then eventually people stop making decisions based on facts and start making them based on fear. That's not how justice is supposed to work. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments section below. Do you think Jeanine Pirro simply followed the evidence, or do you think Donald Trump was right to criticize her? As usual, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more news commentaries. I'll see you guys in the next one.